All right, it's Tuesday, April 25th. Got a lot of things I want to talk about today. Lakers, Memphis, Warriors, Kings, talk some Houston Rockets. I have best bets for tomorrow's games. Nothing on tonight's card, but we can take a look at that. But first, I think it's only right that we talk Bucks Heat. And what I really mean by that is we got to talk about Jimmy Butler. 56 points last night, 19 for 28, 15 for 18 from the free throw line, 3 of 8 from three-point range. And he was doing things that we don't normally see Jimmy Butler do. Like during the regular season, you watch a Miami Heat game and you never see Jimmy Butler have performances like this. You really never do. But does anybody have the superpower of turning into like a whole nother player in the postseason like Jimmy Butler? I mean, he just turns into a complete superhero during the postseason. And this type of performance, like I said, was really surprising for Jimmy Butler in a regular season game. But for a postseason game, you're not surprised at all that this guy just kept coming and coming and coming. And, I got to be honest, I'm watching that game, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Giannis is back. Let me watch the first couple of minutes. And Giannis just looks so good out there. And even though Jimmy Butler was killing it in the first quarter, I'm thinking, well, the Bucks still have a big lead while he's going crazy. Once he calms down, because eventually he's going to have to cool down and not hit so many shots and get to the line so often. Eventually he's going to cool down, right? And the Bucks are just going to take this game and take full control. I'm thinking the Bucks probably cover. The Bucks win by double digits. Giannis finishes with a triple-double. Giannis looked great in his return, by the way. And all these things are going through my mind, and then you're watching the game, and the Bucks have a 10-point lead. They have a 13-point lead, and they're just kind of, it's going back and forth, but the Bucks really have control throughout the course of the game. And in the back of my head, I'm just kind of considering this game to be the Bucks' game to win, and that the Bucks aren't going to lose this game, and that we're going to get this series tied 2-2 with the Bucks going back home with a chance to just, best of three, with the Bucks being the superior team. Tyler Hero being out for Miami is a big loss. And I'm thinking, okay, like the Bucks are going to win this series in like 6 or 7, and we're just going to forget about this series moving on. Like it's just going to be one of those series that the Bucks got pushed a little bit because Giannis was out of game, but it's not a big deal. And boy, was I wrong. And because I was thinking like that, it kind of got in the way of me appreciating this performance by Jimmy, because I kept thinking like, they're going to lose. He's going to cool down. And he just kept coming and coming. And he really, it's really crazy when you think about Jimmy Butler. I have such a hard time trying to figure out where he ranks among other NBA players. When I watch Jimmy play and I watch like Paul George play, you automatically, like, for me, it's just natural to say Paul George is better. Like, you just naturally say Paul George is better. You just naturally say, like, Donovan Mitchell is better or Devin Booker is better. Like, there's just guys who you're like, oh, these guys are better than Jimmy Butler. Like, even, like, Ja Morant. Like, you just say, like, these guys are better than Jimmy Butler. But time and time again in the postseason, he just ends the year being a top 5 player in the NBA. Like, when postseason basketball comes up and we're watching the best teams go at it, and you look at all the best players in the league, he's always ends up being like one of the top 5 best guys in April and May and June. Like it never fails. And I think the reason why it's so hard to rank this guy is because he really does elevate his play in the postseason. Most players actually go down a little bit in the clutch. Most players actually go down a little bit when the pressure's on them and when teams are scouting on them and there's a whole scouting report on you in a series, and the intensity rises in these games. He's actually one of the few players that you can think of that actually elevates his game. Like Michael Jordan always elevated his game in the postseason. LeBron would elevate his game in the postseason. Jimmy Butler elevates his game in the postseason. Like when you look at his career, of course, he gets drafted 30th overall by the Chicago Bulls. He's not like a big-time player coming out of Marquette. He's like a wing that's known for playing defense. He's averaging 3 points a game his rookie year, not even playing a ton of games. He plays like half the season, doesn't even get in that much. His second year in, he's getting minutes as a valuable role player. This is for those Chicago teams that were banging with the Miami Heat. He's averaging 9 points his sophomore year. He's averaging 13 points his third year in the league. His fourth year in the league is his breakout season. He averages 20 and 6. He makes the All-Star team this season. It's his breakout year. And from that season on, he goes on to have, 4 years straight of averaging 20 points or more. That's kind of like where he starts to get going. But the stat line isn't like absurd. Like he has 1 year with Chicago, probably his best statistical season ever, where he's averaging 24, 6, and 6. That's in the 16-17 season. 24, 6, and 6. Like when you think of that, you're not thinking of a superstar player, but it's all the intangibles. It's the fact that every time this guy drives to the paint, he can get to the paint at will. Teams are sagging off and he still gets to the paint. And when he gets to the paint, sometimes he takes it, but especially early in games, like he's one of the best players at knowing like, okay, when I get into the paint, my team needs me today. I'm going to just be going up with this. I'm going to take these floaters. I'm going to take this mid-range jumper. My team needs me to put up some points. I got to be aggressive tonight. Like he really knows when to do that, and he also knows when to drive and do the Luka thing where you drive into the paint and you do the drive and kick. And when Luka drives and kicks, he usually draws the defense in and kicks it out to a shooter, and then the shooter makes or misses the shot. Jimmy does this thing where he drives, and then when he kicks it out, he'll run up to the shooter, and now as the defender is closing out on the shooter, Jimmy is there as a screener. So now if you're Duncan Robinson or Kyle Lowry or Tyler Hero, you're catching the ball with a chance to do a catch and shoot, a catch and shoot opportunity. But also Jimmy Butler's coming with a screen, and now you can work that with a jab step, or you can cross your man into Jimmy Butler and, make a play out of that. Like he never stops moving. He'll hang around the paint and like tip the ball out to his teammates. He's a very, very willing passer. He really doesn't mind having a 16-point game. I mean, this season, he quietly had a great season. He averaged 23 points per game this year, but he was getting to the free throw line 9 times a game this year. Like he's only hitting about 7 shots a game. Like this guy will hit like 1 3 and he'll hit like 6 2s. 6 2s, that's 12 points. The 3, 15. He's scoring 15 points off made baskets. Like when a guy scores 15 points in the NBA, you don't really notice it like that. But then he's getting like another 8 points at the free throw line. And Jimmy Butler is one of the best free throw shooters ever. Like, I know he's not a 90% free throw shooter, but he gets to the line so often that it's hard to be a 90% free throw shooter. Like, I've always said this about Jordan Poole, and I'm going to talk Warriors later. When Jordan Poole won the free throw, when he was the free throw leader last year in the NBA, I think he finished the year at like 92%, 91%. I then watched him in the postseason miss some free throws at the line, And I would always tell my guys, I would tell them, Jordan Poole's not a real 90% free throw shooter. Like, he just doesn't get to the line that often, so when he gets there, he's making them. But he's not a real 90% free throw shooter, because in the games where he actually gets to the line more, he always misses 1 or 2. So he's not a real 90% free throw shooter. These guys who only get to the line, like take 2 free throws or 4 free throws a game, it's easy to go 2 for 2 or 4 for 4 from the line. Jimmy Butler consistently goes 9 for 10 from the line, 8 for 10 from the line, 9 for 11 from the line. Like, he does that every single game. And to me, that's the most valuable free throw shooter, because I know this guy's going to get to the line a ton, and even if he missed a free throw in the last possession, he's still going to get to the free throw line this possession. He always does the pump fake thing. He's always going to try to get you up with him, draw the contact, and if you don't go up, he does have great touch in that mid-range area, and he's a better finisher. Even at this age in his career, he's a little older, he still can rise up and use his strength and his hops to go finish at the rim. I mean, this was just an incredible performance, and now I feel really good about the fact that I picked him to be All-NBA. I had him on the list that I did. I had him as third-team All-NBA this year at the forward spot, and, I mean, he showed it last night. I mean, he was incredible. He was the best player on the floor when on against the team that had Giannis in a must-win game. He was the best player on the floor. Like, he just wouldn't go away. That was very Jordan-like, just, when my team needs a basket, I'm just going to have to go and get one, and I'm just not going to stop. And if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan, I can only imagine how frustrated you are right now with Coach Bud. Coach Bud, he runs a great system. It works. I mean, this team is a veteran team, and they still won the most games in the regular season. They didn't have to do that. But the system is so good that it wins a ton of games. Even with Middleton in and out the lineup, even with Giannis in and out the lineup, this team still won the most games in the regular season. So obviously what he does works. They won a championship doing it his way, so clearly it works. But when his system isn't working, he just is so unwilling to change or adapt. It's his way or the highway. He's not going to change. He's going to keep the same look the entire time. And I know as a fan, it has to be frustrating because when you're playing against the Brooklyn Nets in that legendary series a few years ago and KD's just lighting up PJ Tucker, or when you're watching this game and Jimmy Butler just goes for 56 in a must-win game against your team, and Coach Bud isn't willing to change anything up. He's just letting Drew Holiday fight over screens and chase you off the three-point line, but then he has Brook and Giannis in such a drop coverage that there's so much space in between that he's just leaving open, and he's just not going to adjust. He's going to play the law of averages, and he's going to expect that eventually those shots aren't going to fall. And look, it's worked a lot of times for them. But when KD's torching you, when Jimmy Butler's torching you, when you have a guy that's stronger than the on-ball defender, because Jimmy Butler is stronger than Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday's a tank, but Jimmy Butler's a tank and he's taller. So when you get Drew Holiday on Jimmy Butler's hip, and Jimmy Butler's just kind of like keeping him on his side, now Jimmy Butler has so much space in front of him. And time again last night, we were seeing Jimmy Butler just do little floaters right in front of Brook Lopez, little floaters right in front of Giannis, mid-range jumpers, or even the times that Brook and Giannis will come up, then he'll do a pump fake. He looks around, he sees that Drew Holiday left, and now he's with Giannis or Lopez, and then he does some type of up and under where the big men aren't quite mobile enough to get around to the ball. So he just had a lot of tricks up his sleeve in this game, and it just sucks because Coach Bud isn't going to adjust at all. He's just going to play it out, and he's going to hope that it plays out on his side. And when a guy got it rolling like that, like when Jimmy Butler's cooking like that, you have to do something else. You just have to. And if you guys remember, when the Milwaukee Bucks were down 2-0 to the Brooklyn Nets in that series a few years ago, there were rumors that Coach Bud was going to be out of there if they lost that series. Of course, Kyrie Irving gets hurt. James Harden's banged up. We know KD shot the ball, toe on the line, and the Bucks won in overtime in Game 7. They end up winning a championship. Everything works out. But Coach Bud's job was legitimately on the line, and I really do believe so. I think if they blow that series to Brooklyn, especially with KD out there by himself, I think Coach Bud is out of there. They end up winning the championship, so it buys him more time. But a game like last night is so frustrating because when you watch like the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr will let, like LeBron back in the day, he'll let LeBron cook. He'll let Luka cook. He'll let these guys cook for like the first 3 quarters. But in the 4th quarter, he knows that you're tired, and then he'll start sending traps, or he'll mix it up and throw a zone out there, or, he'll try different things. Like, he'll let you cook, but he's also going to keep you on your toes, make you react a little bit, get the ball out of your hands sometimes, and he knows over the course of 48 minutes, you are going to tire out a little bit. And Coach Bud he doesn't do anything special. He gives you the same look for 48 minutes in a row, and he just says, my look is better than the player. And sometimes your scheme or your look just isn't going to be better than the best players in the world. Jimmy Butler, that game last night was Jimmy Butler taking Coach Bud's game plan and just ripping it to shreds. That's literally, if you didn't watch the game last night and you were wondering what happened last night, it was Jimmy Butler taking Coach Bud's game plan and ripping it to shreds. They needed to make an adjustment, and it just never came. And now they're down 3-1, and I have a very, very hard time believing that Jimmy Butler, who has the ability to play like this when he needs to, and Eric Spoelstra, one of the best coaches in the entire league, I have a hard time imagining they're going to lose 3 games straight. If you go on a game-to-game basis, Milwaukee's going to be favored all 3 games. You kind of do feel like Milwaukee would have a chance in each individual game, but I don't know. The idea of them winning 3 straight when you couldn't even pull out this one, we don't know if Giannis's back is going to tighten up or anything. I have a very hard time imagining Milwaukee's going to come back from 3-1. I think Miami just sealed its deal into getting into the Eastern Conference semifinals. I think the Bucks season is done, and I think in the offseason, they're going to have some questions to ask because I like the bench. I like the depth that they have. They have a bunch of veteran guys. Jay Crowder, even though Jay Crowder can't guard anybody anymore, he can still shoot. Joe Ingles, Pat Connaughton, Javon Carter, Bobby Portis. I like these guys. I do. Brook Lopez, great complimentary player in the starting lineup. I actually like Holiday and Middleton, but I do think that they need somebody in that Grayson Allen spot that can score more. I do think that Drew Holiday shouldn't be like your primary ball handler all the time. I think Holiday, honestly, when you think about when Holiday was like super successful with the New Orleans Pelicans, it was when Rondo was running the one and Holiday was playing the two. And Rondo would guard point guards sometimes. Like Holiday would guard point guards. He would lock up a Damian Lillard sometimes. But Rondo was running the show and playing the one, really. Because Drew Holiday is a big body guy who you can put at shooting guard. And I think if they could get like a combo guard in their starting lineup, somebody that could score a little bit, someone who can pass, take some of the playmaking and ball handling away from Drew and Middleton and Giannis and just kind of ease everything up on the offensive end. I think that would help them big time because, they're relying on perimeter players who aren't quite superstars to like do superstar things. And ultimately it's Giannis with a bunch of guys who are like a B plus. And the name that comes to mind, Dante DiVincenzo, he's going to be a free agent this season. He was on the Milwaukee Bucks on the team that won a championship a few years ago. And I mean, he that's a familiar face, a familiar guy who could just fit into the system that they have. I do think that they need somebody like higher caliber, like, they need some star power at that shooting guard position as Middleton, coming up off of this injury, Brook Lopez getting older. Drew Holiday is not a young guy either, and I don't think he should be handling the ball as much as he does. So he's not like a true classic point guard. Nor is he like a super athletic guard who's just like fast and blowing by guys. They don't really have that, and I think they could really use somebody who they could trust out there on the perimeter in a different way. I know you can trust Holiday and Middleton, but you need a guy who you can trust in a different way, more offensively, more with a little more pace and a little more speed. So that's it on the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. I do think that series is all but finished. I don't know how many games it's going to go. I mean, it is the Bucks. They are champions. I respect them, but I do think Miami pulls that out ultimately. All right, next up, Lakers, Memphis. Lakers pretty much sealed the deal last night. They're up 3-1 in the series. It's going back to Memphis. I do think Memphis wins Game 5. I'm going to get into that more in the best bets segment. But in Game 4, I was really impressed with Memphis, honestly. I thought that they kept AD in check. I thought, this team struggles on the road a lot. They came out really flat in Game 3. And Game 4, in a game that they really needed back against the wall, they played all out. Ja Morant, broken hand. Steven Adams out. Brandon Clark out. Jair Williams is, he didn't work out the way that they were expecting him to. They got to give David Roddy minutes. There's just a lot going on with this team. They're banged up. They just had a tough year. The Ja Morant drama. And it makes you wonder, are the Memphis Grizzlies cursed? Because the Los Angeles Lakers had no business winning last night. AD completely locked up. LeBron James, yeah, he had 20 and 20, but he only had 20 points in a game that went into overtime. It's not like LeBron was really just torching them. So, you have to win that game, but D'Lo starts hitting shots. D'Lo had his best game in a long time. Austin Reeves is making plays, and, Dylan Brooks is just offering nothing. There were times that he looked completely shook out there on the court. So as much as I should be talking about the Lakers and how impressive the Lakers are, and are the Lakers a legitimate threat to win a championship this season, LeBron and AD, their health is always going to be a concern with LeBron at this age and stage of his career, and with Anthony Davis just always being an injury-prone guy. Injuries are always going to be something to worry about. I do think this team is kind of slow. Like, yeah, they play physical defense, but if the Warriors, insert Jordan Poole into the starting lineup like they did against the Kings, and if Steve Kerr says, hey, we're going to jack up 53s, and we're going to play with so much pace and have so many screens that we're just going to shoot the Lakers out of some of these games. I don't know how the Lakers hang with the Warriors. Now, the Warriors, there's some matchups that cause problems for the Warriors. Like, AD and LeBron are just huge, and the Warriors are a very small team. So, it goes both ways, but threes are worth more than twos. And I think if the Warriors get past Sacramento, the Warriors pose a lot of problems for the Lakers. I do think that the Warriors probably end up winning that series. But it would be a great series, especially for the Bay LA rivalry. Everybody in California makes a big deal out of that. So that'll be fun to watch. But more than anything, like I said, what I got out of that game last night is Memphis just had a tough year. I respect them more than most people do. They always win a ton of games in the regular season. They function at a high level. John Morant gets to the rim at will whenever he wants. Even with a broken hand, he's flushing it down. They have a lot of uh, charm. They're very charismatic. I like this team. They were the team that everybody loved last year. Now they hate them all of a sudden. They're the villains, and I don't really buy into media narratives. I think Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, John Morant, like that's a big three that, as they grow together, that can be the best big three in the NBA one day. Like that is elite big three. Like Desmond Bane is an amazing two-way guard. John Morant does whatever he wants out there, and Jaren Jackson was an amazing defensive player, but now he's really coming into his own on the offensive end. And it just sucks because their starting center got hurt, their backup big got hurt, their star player has, the drama with the gun, whatever. Dylan Brooks, they got to get rid of him. I mean, he's gone in the offseason. They're not keeping him. They're going to put in Roddy into the starting lineup or Zaire Williams. This team is out there playing Tillman heavy minutes. Nothing against Tillman. He was great in game 2, but he's a role player who should be playing limited minutes. So just a tough season for Memphis. I do think that next year, in the offseason, this team has a great front office. They're going to put some things together, and they're going to make sure this team comes out stronger next year. I still haven't gave up on the Grizzlies. I still haven't lost hope. I see people saying De'Aaron Fox is better than Ja Morant. I see people saying the Kings have a brighter future than the Memphis Grizzlies. I can't quite get there yet. I think it's too early to say that. Memphis has shown me a lot over the past few years. They just have the worst luck. I mean, Ja scored 40-something points in Game 3 with a broken hand, and he was playing his ass off last night. And it's just unfortunate the way that it goes. And maybe he's just going to have an injury-ridden career because of his playing style. But, we're just going to have to wait and see. Like I said, I do think their front office is going to make the right moves. Get rid of Dylan Brooks. Insert a guy at that small forward position. Or Roddy or Williams is going to step up and they'll be able to insert them. Maybe they go Kennard. However they do it, I think this team comes back better next season with a chip on their shoulder. And I think this is like the last time that they get like bounced in like the first round or second round by like a team that's like kind of on their level, but a team that can like bully them. I think next year the Memphis Grizzlies won't get bullied anymore. I think this was kind of like a rite of passage, and they're starting to get older and, just maturing on the basketball court. This is going to be like a life lesson, moment for them. This series will be one that they can look back on the same way that the Warriors look back on their series against the Clippers back in 2014 when they lost in 7 games in round 1. And then the next year they went on to win the championship. I'm not saying Memphis is going to win a championship next season, but I do think that in the long run, this is going to be something that they can look back on, and it can be a teachable moment. All right, switching gears, let's talk Warriors Kings. Game 4 was a fascinating game. I thought the Warriors played really well. When a home team is clicking like that, just playing at a high level, there's not much you can do if you're the road team. I thought the Kings did a good job, though, of just hanging in there. The Kings never went away. The Warriors had stretches where they were just, the ball was moving. They were playing well. The home crowd was behind them. Draymond came in off the bench, had a lot of energy, and the Kings just hung around. Like, Steph goes for 30. Clay and Jordan Poole are cooking. Wiggins having a good game. Draymond's having a good game. Looney's being Looney. And the Kings just never went away. They never went away. De'Aaron Fox hooping. Keegan Murray hooping. And they just hung around. And at the very end, Steph Curry pulls the Chris Webber. They have a couple bad lapses. Steph shoots the shot too early. Steph hasn't been too good in the clutch in the past few years. It's something I've talked about a few times. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's behind that. But he just hasn't been that great in like last second shots or last minute or two in the game, making plays. I don't know why. I mean, he's the greatest shooter ever, but I watch a ton of Warrior games, and that's just what I see every time down the stretch. He has a hard time making shots that he normally makes. So Sacramento hangs around. They have a chance to win the game late. Harrison Barnes misses that shot, and I've kind of done a whole 180 flip on Harrison Barnes. Like, I grew up a Warriors fan growing up in the Bay Area. I was a diehard fan, and I remember when Harrison Barnes got drafted, I was excited. He was an athletic wing. I knew that his jumper wasn't like super automatic, but I knew that this was a guy who could just do things on the court that we didn't necessarily have, like his slashing ability, getting to the rim. He was a fun player. He had a huge dunk against the Minnesota Timberwolves in his rookie season, like a monster slam on the European big man. I think his name was like Nikola Peklovich or Pelovich, something like that. But yeah, Harrison Barnes had a huge monster slam on him in his rookie season. Um, when Iguodala came, Harrison Barnes came off the bench. When Steve Kerr came, Harrison Barnes was inserted back into the starting lineup. And here's a crazy stat that I heard from Skip, of all people. He said Harrison Barnes, since 1997, when they were tracking this stat, Harrison Barnes is 7 for 16. That's 40%, which is first all time in last 5 seconds of the game go ahead shots, like to tie the game or take the lead the last 5 seconds. Harrison Barnes, number one in the entire NBA. And to be honest, as I think about it, it makes sense because he hit a game winner for the Kings a few years ago. I feel like he hit one for the Mavs. I know he hit a ton of clutch shots for the Warriors. I know he hit one against Boston one time for us way back in the day. So as much flack as people want to give Harrison Barnes for missing that last shot in Game 4, or even rushing the three-point shot the play before that when it bounced to him, and even all the bad shooting that he had, the horrible shooting performance he had in the last 3 games of the NBA Finals in 2016 before ultimately they moved off of Harrison Barnes and went and got Kevin Durant. I mean, I understand that. I was like the main guy who was saying Harrison Barnes was trash. I was hating on him so much. I remember my uncle being like, yeah, it was before I feel like people were really calling guys trash. I was like, Harrison Barnes is trash because he would just miss these open jumpers. Like, even during the regular season, he'd miss some, and he always felt like the weakest link in our starting lineup the year that we won 73 games. And then, like, in the finals, he just was like a complete no-show. LeBron and them stopped even closing out, and I just kept saying, Harrison Barnes is trash. Harrison Barnes is trash. And my uncle was like watching the games with me, and he was like, yo, don't call another human trash, bro. Like, that's disrespectful, da-da-da-da-da. And he made me feel bad about it, and I was like, all right. And then, a couple more shots that Harrison Barnes missed. Like, he shot 18% in the last 3 games, so he missed a lot of shots. And he missed some more shots, and then my uncle turned around, and he was like, nah, this guy is trash. And, me and my cousin and my uncle, we just all started bursting out laughing. So I was, like, probably the biggest Harrison Barnes hater, like, just was kind of glad to get him off the team, get Kevin Durant onto the team. This is once again, this is when I was a Warrior fan. Now I don't care so much. I do the sports betting. I've kind of removed my bias throughout the years. I'm not ever going to root against my hometown team. They're the team that I watch the most because, I can catch them every night on the local telecast. But, I'm never going to root against them, but I'm not like a diehard Warriors fan anymore or anything like that. Not like that for any team in the Bay Area. I bet against Bay Area teams all the time. But, Harrison Barnes, like I was saying, back to the point, Harrison Barnes was a guy that I wasn't really too crazy of. And now as his career just goes by and I see like, hey, he doesn't back down to Draymond Green. He gets traded in the middle of a game playing for the Dallas Mavericks. And, he gets sent to Sacramento. Really, he gets sent there to die. He gets sent there to drown. Like, they just threw him out there. And Sacramento, that was where you went to just end your career. You just end your career. You're a bum. You're in Sacramento. You're playing for the Kings. You're done. You're cooked. No one's checking for you. And he just kept grinding and kept grinding. And when you think of the Sacramento Kings now, like, De'Aaron Fox is the most important player on the team. Sabonis is second. As far as pieces on the team, like Coach Brown, what he brings to the team, he's one of the most important pieces. But after that, Keegan Murray as a rookie, he's up and down. Kevin Huerter as a role player is up and down. Malik Monk, really good bench player, but you know what he is. He's a 6-man guy. He's not going to start for you. And when you look at like who they can kind of rely on, I'm not saying Harrison Barnes is like a big 3 or something like that, but Harrison Barnes on a team that was the 3 seed this season, he was like their 3rd best player when you think about it. Like, maybe you could argue me Monk, but Harrison Barnes averaged more points per game than Monk, and Harrison Barnes starts. And I mean, Harrison Barnes is like their 3rd most reliable guy. Like, you can't really argue with saying Harrison Barnes is the 3rd best player on the team. I mean, you can argue against it, but he kind of is the 3rd guy on the team. And when the Warriors won 73 games that year, Iggy was the 4th guy after the big 3, and then if you wanted to say Bogut or something, but Harrison Barnes was the top 4, top 5 guy on a team that won 73 games. Like, Harrison Barnes has been a part of teams that have won a lot in the NBA. And I like his demeanor, and even post-game, he's like, hey, after you get over what I did in 2016, after you're able to get over that mentally, nothing's really going to bother you anymore. I'm just going to take the shot. I have no fear. And I just love hearing that from a guy. He's not letting Draymond Green punk him. I honestly would have liked to see him make that shot just so he could give it to Draymond Green, because Draymond Green tries to talk a lot of shit about him. Draymond Green, of course, went behind Harrison Barnes' back and tried to get Kevin Durant to replace Harrison Barnes. I know Draymond denies that and says, I wasn't calling Kevin Durant, calling Kevin Durant after Game 7. I didn't tell management, to let Harrison Barnes go. But ultimately, he knew when he was going after Kevin Durant that Harrison Barnes was going to be out of there. He knew that's how it was going to go down. And I like that Harrison Barnes has kind of just stayed the course throughout his career and never really just let up. Like, he's continuing to be the same guy that he's always been. He's going to come in, he's going to give you 15 points, 13 points. He's going to grab about 5 boards. He's going to play good defense. He's not going to back down from anybody. He's going to keep his composure. Like, he was a young guy in that 2016 finals, and I think people just kind of write him off as like, hey, you were the guy that was horrible in the finals that year. But he's had a lot of accomplishments in his career. I mean, this is a guy coming from North Carolina, and I don't know. I made a 180 flip on Harrison Barnes. I went from being a Harrison Barnes hater and not really seeing the value in a Harrison Barnes to thinking like, hey, this guy is pretty cool. He has a good energy, and, he's going to bring what he can do. And what he can do is a little bit of everything. He can shoot it a little bit. He can defend. He can rebound the ball a little bit. He can put it on the deck a little bit. That's who Harrison Barnes is. And you might not find it that valuable, but for instance, the Cleveland Cavaliers right now are down 3-1 in the series against the Knicks. The Cavs have no small forward play. If they could insert Harrison Barnes onto that team, they would do that in a heartbeat. Like, that would change everything for Cleveland. There are some teams, I know teams like the 76ers, sometimes they wish they had an upgrade over Tobias Harris. Sometimes Sacramento fans probably wish that they had an upgrade over Harrison Barnes. But there's teams out there that are playing like a Coro at small forward. You know what I mean? Trying to compete with something like that. But when you have a guy like Harrison Barnes, at least you know what you're getting, and you're going to be getting it every single night. So that's my little flip on Harrison Barnes. I also wanted to comment on what Draymond was saying. Draymond was saying that, and I know I kind of go hard on Draymond sometimes. Like I said, he had the 2 most important plays in the game the other night. Like his stop against Sabonis when Sabonis had the 2-on-1 and he picked Sabonis, and then his other stop where Harrison Barnes was driving down baseline and he could have dumped it off to Sabonis, but he's thinking Draymond's going to pick that off. And Harrison Barnes, he wants to get at Draymond, so he's rising up trying to dunk it. And Draymond stops Barnes, and then Sabonis gets the ball, and Draymond and Wiggins stop Sabonis. So, Draymond had the 2 most important plays, in my opinion, in that game. He was great in that game. But to hear this guy try to say that he asked to come off the bench, like, Draymond is in a contract year. He has a player option. There's rumors that he's going to the Lakers. There's all types of different rumors. And the idea that, like, oh, Draymond asked to come off the bench. Like, that's just the Warriors just, stroking his ego. That's the Warriors saying, hey, this is how we're going to say it went down. But really, Steve Kerr, it doesn't take even Stevie Wonder could see that the Warriors were playing better basketball only having one big man out there, and that big man was Kevon Looney. When Kevon Looney is out there, he's a better rebounder than Draymond Green. I'm not saying he's a better player than Draymond Green, but he's a better rebounder than Draymond Green. And when you only have one big man out there, and that big man's able to get all the rebounds so you're not losing in the rebounding department, then you have 4 guards that really stretches out the floor, and it makes the offense way better. And Draymond even said, to his credit, he did say, hey, when I was watching the game, I realized our spacing was way better, and I understood where I have to stand on the court in order for me to be effective. And he did miss a lot of layups, and he admitted that, hey, I missed a bunch of layups that I'm normally going to make. And hey, it is what it is. First game back, whatever the case is, getting adjusted to the role or whatever. But I'm not going to give him too hard of a time for that because he was amazing on defense. But it was just funny hearing the dude lie and he's doing the media thing now, and it's just funny hearing the dude lie and try to act like, oh yeah, it was my idea. I'm such a team player that I'm coming off of the bench and doing this for the Warriors, for the better part of the team. I'm sacrificing myself, and I'm that guy, da-da-da-da-da. Like, come on, Draymond. Like, throughout your whole career, throughout your entire time with the Warriors, it's been about the Warriors having to adjust to you. When Kevin Durant doesn't adjust to you, you call him a bitch-ass nigga. That's what you call Kevin Durant when he doesn't adjust to you. When Jordan Poole doesn't adjust to you, you sock him in the face. When Harrison Barnes doesn't adjust to you, you bully him and you get him sent out of town for KD. When James Wiseman doesn't adjust to you, you bully the young kid, and the kid has no confidence playing on the team because you're yelling and screaming at him on live TV in front of everybody to see. I don't buy for 1 minute that Draymond Green was like, oh yeah, what's best for the team is if I come off the bench. Like, you can hear it in Draymond's tone when he talks about the Warriors. When Draymond talks about LeBron James, he talks about LeBron like, LeBron's an incredible player who's done this, and that. And he talks about him like a guy who's like done it singularly. Like, he talks about LeBron like a solo entity, When he talks about like things Kevin Durant has done, or when he talks about things the Warriors have done or Steph Curry has done, he talks about it as a big three or as a big four. Like, he doesn't act like Steph just did this on his own or Clay just did this on his own. He acts like it's the team that makes the Warriors so great. You know what I mean? Like, he gives credit to Steph Curry, but he acts like it's the team that makes the Warriors so great. It's the system that makes the Warriors so great. When it's LeBron, though, he acts like LeBron is the reason why LeBron teams are so great. Even though, like, for a lot of games this season, Anthony Davis has been the best player on the Lakers, and you could argue Anthony Davis is the best player on the Lakers now. I mean, like, it's definitely real close. I mean, it's a coin toss as to who you think's better. Maybe you say LeBron just because of his leadership and stuff, but like on court performance, Anthony Davis is probably better now. I mean, I don't think anybody's denying that. So it's just funny to see this guy like try to flip the script and like. He's got a contract year coming up, and whether it's like him trying to look good for other teams or, him trying to stay in the Warriors' good graces or however it went, it's just funny to see him act like, I'm this super team player who's cool with coming off the bench. Who cares what I think about coming off of the bench? It's not going to affect me, da-da-da-da-da. Like, dude, everybody saw the game and saw how good the Warriors played without you. I mean, they won by 1 point when you were in the game, and they lost the other 2 games that you were in. And they had a blowout win when you weren't in the game. And I'm not saying that the Warriors are better without Draymond Green, but I am saying that it's kind of obvious that what they need in this particular series isn't necessarily Draymond Green. Like, Draymond Green isn't the perfect fit in this series, even though he can be extremely effective at times. And he was effective at times against the Boston Celtics last year. He was effective at times against the Memphis Grizzlies last year. But in those 2 series, there were several instances where the Warriors really needed to put their best lineup out there, and that lineup did not feature Draymond Green. And that's just a fact. Now, against the Denver Nuggets last year and against the Dallas Mavericks last year, guarding Nikola Jokic and guarding Jalen Brunson, Draymond Green was amazing, and he was needed in the lineups that the Warriors needed to put out there to put their foot on the gas and have their best lineup out there. Draymond was a part of that. But against Boston and against Memphis, Draymond wasn't always the go-to guy to be in that top 5 for the Warriors. He just wasn't. And against the Sacramento Kings, he probably isn't, honestly. Like, him and Looney is going to, even though Looney's playing amazing, he's going to have to sacrifice to make sure Draymond gets in there just as much as he does. Now, for tomorrow's games, April 26th, there's 4 games. Of course, Knicks, Cavs, and Heat, Bucks. 2 teams, the Cavs and the Bucks, that are fighting for their lives right now, back against the wall, facing elimination. And the games are on NBA TV. Like, we got to do better. If you look at the games the next day, if the Celtics win, there's not a Game 6 the next day. If the Suns win, there's not a Game 6 the next day. If the Nuggets win, there's not a Game 6 the next day. So, I don't know why they have to have all 4 games on Wednesday night. Like, I don't know why Cavs and Bucks fighting for their lives are on NBA TV. But, Cavs at home, -5.5. I like that look a lot. Nothing official right now. But for me, it's Cavs or nothing. I'll go official tomorrow once I look into these games more. But just letting you guys know where my head is at. I like the Cavs at home tomorrow, -5.5. Cavs are nothing for me. Grizzlies at home, -4.5. It would be Grizzlies or nothing for me. I can see the Lakers laying down in that spot. Heat, Bucks -10.5. That does feel like a lot of points, but hey, it's a big number for a reason. It's a big line for a reason in an elimination game. The Miami Heat just put it all out there in Game 5. It's hard to imagine they're going to repeat efforts in Game 6. I mean, they put it all out there in Game 4. It's hard to imagine they're going to put it all out there in Game 5 again. Jimmy Butler, throughout his career, we have seen games where he'll put up 40, and then the next game he has like 16 because he's tired. He's weared out. So I would lean Bucks to cover the 10.5 in that game. Warriors minus 4.5 at Sacramento. Honestly, it's hard for me to really say anything until I know if Fox is in or not, and then Fox being in is going to change the line. But even if Fox is out, if you get like an inflated number and you're able to take like the Kings on like a big number as a big home underdog, and like Davion Mitchell's been playing amazing defense on Steph, and Malik Monk can maybe pick up for De'Aaron Fox's scoring, and they're at home and the Warriors have road struggles. That would be kind of interesting. Like if the Kings are getting a ton of points and Fox is out, that could be kind of interesting. If Fox is like super, like if Fox wasn't hurt, like if he was super ready to go, I would like the Kings to actually cover that -1. I mean, he practiced, but it was a non-contact practice. Like he didn't really go through too much in today's practice. So I expect him to play, but I think that he's going to be limited. He probably starts just to give the team that spark and the show face type of thing. But I mean, D Fox is a soldier, but it just seems like now the Warriors kind of got them where they want them. Even if the Kings pull this out, which is possible, but even if the Kings pull this out, it feels like the Warriors winning this thing either in 6 or 7 at this point. Game 4 was a game that it would have been nice to see the Kings go up 3-1 and all the pressure's on the Warriors now. And then you hear De'Aaron Fox is hurt and like the Warriors could legitimately come back from 3-1. But now 2-2 and D Fox is hurt. It feels like the Warriors are just having things go their way. So those are my looks for tomorrow's games. Best of luck to everybody betting these playoff games. It's been tough so far. The playoffs haven't had like a lot of super smooth spots. You got to really pick and choose what games you want to take. Like some of these lines have been super tight. I mean, if you saw Lakers Memphis last night, if you had the Grizzlies, I feel bad. They blow it in overtime with like zero point 0.3 seconds left on the clock, fouling when they didn't really need to foul. So it's just tough. So everybody just be careful with your unit sizes and have some discretion. And unless a spot is like super, unless there's a lot of data on a spot, be a little careful with what you select. So that's it on that. Thank you guys for watching. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share the videos. Until next time, peace.